The Ballad of the Iceworm Cocktail by Robert W. Service. To Dawson town came Percy Brown from London on the Thames. A pane of glass was in his eye and stockings on his stems. Upon the shoulder of his coat a leather pad he wore to rest his deadly rifle when it wasn't seeking gore. The which it must have often been, for Major Percy Brown, according to his story, was a hunter of renown, who in the Murrumbidgee wilds had stalked the kangaroo, and had killed the cassowary on the plains of Timbuktu. And now the Arctic fox he meant to follow to its lair, and it was also his intent to beard the Arctic hare. Which facts concerning Major Brown I merely tell because I fain would have you know him for the Nimrod that he was. Now Skipper Gray and Deacon White were sitting in the shack, and were sampling of the whiskey that pertained to Sheriff Black. Said Skipper Gray, "I want to say a word about this Brown. The piker's sticking out his chest as if he owned the town." Said Sheriff Black, "He has no lack of figurated cheek. He called himself a sourdough when he'd been here just a week." Said Deacon White, "Methinks you're right. And so I have a plan, by which I hope to prove tonight the mettle of this man. Just meet me where the hoochbird sings, and though our ways be rude, we'll make a proper sourdough out of this Piccadilly dude." Within the Malamute saloon were gathered all the gang. The fun was fast and furious, and the loud hoochbird sang. In fact, the night's hilarity had almost reached its crown when into its storm center breezed the gallant Major Brown. And at the apparition, with its glass ion plus fours, from 50 alcoholic throats responded 50 roars. With shouts of stark amazement, and with whoops of sheer delight, they surged around the stranger. But the first was Deacon White. "We welcome you," he cried aloud, "to this the great white land. The Arctic Brotherhood is proud to grip you by the hand. Yeah, sportsmen of the bulldog breed from trails afar away, to Yukoners, this is indeed a memorable day. Our jubilation to express vocabularies fail. Boys, hail the great Cheechako." And the boys responded, "Hail." "And now," continued Deacon White to the blushing Major Brown, "behold, assembled, the elite and cream of Dawson town. And one ambition fills their hearts and makes their bosoms glow. They want to make you, honored sir, a bona fide sourdough. The same, some say, as one who sees the Yukon ice go out. But most profound authorities the definition doubt. And to the genial notion of this meeting, Major Brown, a sourdough is a guy who drinks an iceworm cocktail down." "By gad," responded Major Brown, "that's ripping, don't you know? I've always felt I'd like to be a bona fide sourdough. And though I haven't any doubt your winter's awfully nice, Mayfair, I fear, may miss me ere the break-up of your ice. Yet, pray excuse my ignorance on matters such as these. A cocktail I can understand, but what's an iceworm, please?" Said Deacon White, "It is not strange that you should fail to know, since iceworms are peculiar to the mountain of blue snow. Within the polar rim there rears a solitary peak, and in the smoke of early spring, a spectacle unique. Like flame, it leaps upon the sight and thrills you through and through, for though its cone is piercing white, its base is blazing blue. Yet all is clear as you draw near, for coyly peering out are hosts and hosts of tiny worms, each indigo of snout. And as they find no nourishment to keep themselves alive, they masticate each other's tails, till just the tufts survive. Yet on this stern and Spartan fare so rapidly they grow that some attain 6 inches by the melting of the snow. And when the tundra glows to green and the niggerheads appear, they burrow down and are not seen until another year." "A toughish yarn," laughed Major Brown, "as well you may admit. I'd like to see this little beast before I swallow it." "'Tis easy done," said Deacon White. "Ho, barman! Haste and bring us forth some pickled iceworms from the vintage of last spring." But sadly still was Barman Bill, and sighed as one bereft. "There's been a run on cocktails, boss. There ain't an iceworm left. Yet wait. By gosh, There seems to me that some of extra size were picked and put away to show the scientific guys. Then deeply in a drawer he sought, and there he found a jar, the which with due and proper pride he put upon the bar. And in it, wreathed in queasy rings or rolled into a ball, a score of gray and greasy things were drowned in alcohol. Their bellies were a bilious blue, their eyes a bulbous red, their backs were gray and gross were they and hideous of head. And when with gusto and a fork the barman speared one out, it must have gone 4 inches from his tail tip to its snout. Cried Deacon White with deep delight, "Say, isn't that a beaut?" "I think it is," sniffed Major Brown, "a most disgusting brute. Its very sight gives me the pip. I'll bet my bally hat you're only spoofing me, old chap. You'll never swallow that." "The hell I won't," said Deacon White. "Hey, Bill, that fellow's fine. Fix up 4 iceworm cocktails and put that wop in mine." So Barman Bill got busy, and with sacerdotal air, his art supreme achievement, he proceeded to prepare. His silver cups like sickle moon went waving to and fro, and 4 celestial cocktails soon were shining in a row. And in the starry depths of each, artistically piled, a fat and juicy iceworm raised its mottled mug and smiled. Then closer pressed the peering crowd. Suspended was the fun, as Skipper Gray, in courteous way, said, "Stranger, please take one." But with a gesture of disgust, the Major shook his head. "You can't bluff me. You'll never drink that ghastly thing," he said. "You'll see all right," said Deacon White, and held his cocktail high, till its iceworm seemed to wiggle and to wink a wicked eye. Then Skipper Gray and Sheriff Black each lifted up a glass, while through the tense and quiet crowd a tremor seemed to pass. "Drink, stranger, drink," boomed Deacon White. "Proclaim you're of the best, a doughty sourdough who has passed the iceworm cocktail test." And at those words, with all eyes fixed on the gaping Major Brown, like a libation to the gods, each dashed his cocktail down. The Major gasped with horror as the trio smacked their lips. He twiddled at his eyeglass with unsteady fingertips. Into his cocktail with a look of woe he peered, and its iceworm, to his thinking, most incontinently leered. Yet on him were 100 eyes, though no one spoke aloud, for hushed with expectation as was the waiting, watching crowd. The Major's fumbling hand went forth. The gang prepared to cheer. The Major's faltering hand went back. The mob began to jeer. The Major gripped his gleaming glass and laid it to his lips, and as despairfully he took some nauseated sips. From out its coil of crapulence, the iceworm raised its head. Its muzzle was a murky blue, its eyes a ruby red. Then a roughneck bellowed forth, "This stiff comes here and struts as if he bought the blasted North. Just let him show his guts." And with a roar the mob proclaimed, "Chichaco, Major Brown, reveal that you're of sourdough stuff and drink your cocktail down." The Major took another look, then quickly closed his eyes, for even as he raised his glass he felt his gorge arise. Aye, even though his sight was sealed, in fancy he could see that gray and greasy thing that reared and sneered in mockery. Yet round him ringed the callous crowd, and how they seemed to gloat. It must be done. He swallowed hard. The brute was at his throat. He choked. He gulped. Thank heavens, at last he had got the horror down. Then from the crowd went up a roar, "Hooray for Sourdough Brown!" With shouts they raised him shoulder high and gave a rousing cheer. But though they praised him to the sky, the Major did not hear. Amid their demonstrative glee, delight he seemed to lack. Indeed, it almost seemed that he was keeping something back. A clammy sweat was on his brow, and pallid as a sheet. "I feel I must be going now," he'd plaintively repeat. Though with drinks and smokes galore they tempted him to stay, with sudden bolt he gained the door and made his getaway. And ere next night, his story was the talk of Dawson town. But gone, unreft of glory, was the wrathful Major Brown. For that iceworm, so they told him, of such formidable size, was a stick of stained spaghetti with 2 red ink spots for its eyes. This is Humberto Reepeesnap, and that was the Ballad of the Iceworm Cocktail by Robert W. Service.